The way the future of IoT answers to your questions, this is the second video, take 0.
So Michael Smith from PTC asked, when PTC does IIoT, have ThingWorx in the black box on your diagram and don't use OPC UA between Kepware and ThingWorx. When we're using Kepware for gathering data for other people's modern non-SCADA IIoT platforms, we typically either use message queues for Kepware to push data to them, or they have some version of field agent to transport our data to their server.
All right, so if you couldn't hear that, Michael Smith from PTC said, you'll remember in the video last month, I basically built out this architecture and I said, here, when we're connecting to an existing OPC UA infrastructure, how do we handle this, all right? And the way that we generally handle it is we have got OPC UA, we will use the IoT gateway. We don't talk to Ignition over OPC. What we will do is we'll use the IoT gateway inside of Kep server to publish the namespace over MQTT into Ignition to build the tags. We don't actually go into Ignition and build the tags and pull over OPC UA. We use the IoT gateway to do that. So it's pub sub, and we publish, and what Kep server does is just publish the updates to us to Ignition. So we generally have Ignition here, and then Ignition will be essentially the data layer to MES, ERP, etc. But oftentimes we'll have MES inside of Ignition. Sometimes the ERP system will be inside Ignition, and sometimes where WMS will be in here. Okay, but most of the time they're out here. Okay, and what he was saying is, hey, we use ThingWorx in the black box and not Ignition. And I don't know if he asked us, hey, do you ever use ThingWorx as the black box? The answer is yes, sometimes we do. We were original beta testers for ThingWorx prior to the PTC acquisition of Kepware. We were also beta testers of manufacturing apps, which was a ThingWorx solution that came out, which manufacturing apps was originally supposed to be ThingWorx's MES solution. And we beta tested that as well. And we just, at the end of the day, while we love ThingWorx, we've done several ThingWorx implementations. For the most part, we use ThingWorx just for dashboarding. Okay, we don't really use it as a data layer. I don't know why anyone would. It's going to cost you way too much money. If you were to compare a ThingWorx solution to what we're capable of doing inside of Ignition or FactoryStudio, I mean, we're going to be half the cost of the ThingWorx solution because the engineering is just so labor intensive to develop most of the solutions that the consumer is asking for, okay? But ThingWorx is a really powerful dashboarding solution. Outside of dashboarding, you're just not gonna be able to, it doesn't mean that you can't build amazing things in ThingWorx, you can, but it still costs too much to do it, all right? So let me explain what Michael Smith was saying. What Michael Smith is saying,
and he's a PTC architect.
So Michael Smith is a PTC architect, okay? So what he's saying is, let's go ahead and put ThingWorx in place of Ignition, okay? And we're building this IIoT project. And then what he's doing is he's saying, we're gonna go ahead and use message queues, okay? So think MQTT between Kepware and ThingWorx. When PTC made the acquisition of Kepware, what they did was they have seamlessly integrated ThingWorx with Kep server. So Kep server may as well, for all intents and purposes, live inside the ThingWorx solution, okay? But in this case, it doesn't. He's just gonna use message queues to communicate everything natively that lives inside of Kepware into ThingWorx, okay? And then what they're gonna do is they're gonna use some prepackaged solutions like manufacturing apps, which I think they call, I don't even know what they call it now. They don't call it manufacturing apps, but it was originally like plant performance module, and there was like 3 different modules. The problem was like on the MES side, you couldn't create custom states. So like I could only use the states that were predefined inside of manufacturing apps, that kind of thing. So ThingWorx as a platform for solving problems, it's still too rigid. Well, I don't want to say it's rigid. You can build anything inside of ThingWorx, but you got to do way too much scripting. It's too labor intensive. It would be like building it in Visual Studio, because Ignition already has so many tools built into the palette. FactoryStudio already has so many tools built into the palette where you can drop those tools onto a screen and then connect them through very quick Python scripts, or through relaying through a data source, or relaying it back through an MQTT broker, or relaying it through a web service. I mean, like, we can do things in a day that you can't do in ThingWorx in a week. And so it's not that you can't do it in ThingWorx and that it's not a great solution. It's just when you compare it to the other solutions we have in the market, there's no comparison, okay? So that's the first part.
So it sounds like he was right. But
He's correct in that, exactly, the architecture he described was correct. He did misunderstand what we said. We do not talk to Kepware over OPC UA most of the time. Most of the time we're using the IoT Gateway plugin inside of Kepware to publish data from Kepware into Ignition, into our namespace. The other thing is, I am uncomfortable with the relationship between PTC and Rockwell Automation. It's not that Rockwell is a bad company, but Rockwell is the reason that it costs manufacturers so much to innovate, okay? Rockwell has really suspect business practices. I mean, I could shoot a whole other video about the way that they do their AR groupings and, hey, this is your exclusive distributor. Antitrust laws tell us we can't tell you got to buy from him, but he's going to be able to give you 25% discounts, and this guy can't give you 25% discounts, and if this guy's a dick to you and he doesn't want to work with you, or he wants to steer the work to some other guy, we're okay with that. There's no one, literally no one. We've been doing these videos for a year and a half. This is the number of times that someone who is a non-Rockwell employee has come onto one of our videos or commented on one of our videos and defended Rockwell's business practices. No one has ever defended Rockwell who didn't work for Rockwell. That alone...
Even some people at Rockwell agreed with us.
Yeah, even some people who work at Rockwell agree with us. That alone should tell you what the problem is with that organization. I am uncomfortable with the Rockwell-PTC relationship for this reason. Rockwell is a really closed company. It's not that they have brilliant people who work there. They have some amazing products that I absolutely love. But there's so much good that Rockwell does, but the bad that they do cancels out all the good that they do, and it makes it so that we can't use their solutions, primarily because their solutions aren't going to stand the test of time in the fourth industrial revolution. They're trying to capitalize, they're trying to get you to buy only Rockwell products, and they're doing every shady trick in the book to make that a reality. For example, Rockwell's innovation suite is ThingWorx. Okay, so the billion-dollar partnership between Rockwell and PTC was nothing more than Rockwell paying PTC $1 billion to catch up 10 years in the market because they didn't innovate for Industry 4.0 on their own. They didn't go open enough. So the innovation suite that you see from Rockwell is literally ThingWorx with a Rockwell logo on it. That's all it is. And what that tells me is since Rockwell has spent $1 billion, has given $1 billion to PTC, that buys you a lot of influence over the direction of PTC's offerings. And Rockwell has never gone in the direction of open. And so that tells me that ThingWorx and PTC is not going to go in the direction of open. They're going to go in the direction of more closed. And here's my argument for that. After the Kepware acquisition, Kepware has rebuffed many buyouts. I've been working with Kepware solutions since like 2000. I cut my teeth in the Northeast. I was working with Kepware solutions when the only installs of Kepware were like in New York State, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. That's how long I've been working with Kepware, okay? They have rebuffed lots of buyout requests. When PTC came along and bought Kepware, I had a chance to go meet with their team, and one of the things that I learned right away, I could tell right away that what PTC's plan was, they wanted Kepware's brain power to take ThingWorx all the way to the edge. Okay? So ThingWorx had been nothing more than a software platform that you could build stuff. Think Visual Studio, and it could talk most standard commercial protocols, but it really couldn't talk industrial. So they bought Kepware so that it could. Okay? And so what they did was they originally bought Kepware where I would be connected to all my equipment, you know what I mean, poll response. But their plan all along had been to natively embed Kepware here inside of ThingWorx, and then put Kepware out on the edge and make these connections. So the edge, this is a PLC or an RTU, whatever. And that's exactly what they've done. So ThingWorx Edge is Kepware. It's Kep servers, Modbus, Allen Bradley, and I think Siemens driver is included in it now, rewritten for Linux, because Kepware was originally written just in pure .NET, was rewritten in Linux, the driver technology, so that it can be installed on a small Linux PC and put out on the edge. But why did they do that? They did that so that you can connect Kepware here to connect Kepware here, which is natively integrated in the ThingWorx solution. But that still doesn't change the fact that developing the overall enterprise solution for the customer costs 3 times as much in engineering as it does in comparable platforms like Ignition or FactoryStudio. And so what's important to me is that I can still talk to this once I install Kepware Edge, ThingWorx Edge. It's important to me that Kepware is going to talk as easily to Ignition and FactoryStudio as it will native ThingWorx, which it will. But my concern is that it may not. And the reason why is because there are a lot of products that Rockwell comes out with that they put out on the edge that plays much better with a Rockwell solution than it does with another off-the-shelf solution. And that is by design, to get you to buy the Rockwell solution.
So what is your advice to ThingWorx or PTC and Kepware then?
I think PTC is an outstanding company. I think ThingWorx is an amazing solution. What I'm telling you here is based on our experience developing ThingWorx, developing with Ignition, developing with FactoryStudio. It takes much longer to develop in ThingWorx than it does a comparable solution in Ignition. And the fact that PTC owns Kepware isn't argument enough to use ThingWorx as that platform. We use ThingWorx as a dashboarding solution. Here's another issue. My advice to PTC on ThingWorx: get your pricing down. Right now, nobody within PTC knows how much ThingWorx costs. It's like as if the ThingWorx cost is totally dependent upon the application. I mean, we've worked with it with a half dozen different clients in the last year, and each client is paying. I mean, it's as if it was like whoever negotiated the best price. There's nothing published or open about the pricing, nothing transparent. Number 2, don't get too close to Rockwell. And here's why. Right now, they are the marketing and branding behemoth, but they don't have the superior technology, okay? And think about all of the companies who built a brand on superior technology and then let the technology fade. And all they did was they leaned on the brand. I'm talking about General Motors and Chrysler and Dodge and Jeep and and what ended up happening to those companies once the consumer base realized the technology.
Look at what SpaceX
was subordinate. Exactly. So that's how you know. At the end of the day, whether you succeed or fail is not going to be based on how well you leverage your install base. It's going to be how well your solutions service your customers. Amazon kicks everyone's ass for 2 reasons. Number 1, their commitment to technology, leveraging technology. And number 2, Jeff Bezos cares about one thing and one thing only: the customer experience. That's it. If we are not giving the customer the absolute best experience, then they're going to go somewhere else eventually. And that is exactly what's going to happen with Rockwell. Exactly. It's so much lost potential. And it worries me that PTC climbed in bed with them. Really does. Really, really, really worries me. The people at ThingWorx, the people at Kepware especially, are phenomenal people. They make the best product. I mean, their products are phenomenal. I don't disagree with, it was a Michael Smith, is his name? Yeah. I don't disagree with Michael that in his architecture at all. What I'm saying is we wouldn't make that choice because it would cost too much to engineer in ThingWorx relative to engineering it in Ignition. He uses ThingWorx because he works for PTC. Right. Using Ignition is not an option. But if he was in my place, he'd probably pick Ignition. Actually, I know he would. Anyway, that's the answer to the second question, and thanks for watching.